2015 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board meeting to order. The Traffic Review Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. Council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All items require 2 readings before the Common Council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, September 22nd at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, October 13th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. First item on today's agenda is approval of prior minutes.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Haas,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Szynski, Wanschneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
New business. Number 1, a request to prohibit parking on Wisconsin Street West Side from Murdoch Avenue to 135 feet south. Current condition, no parking restriction.
This is in conjunction with the new road realignment on Murdoch Avenue. Currently, the parking is restricted on the east side of Wisconsin Street from Murdoch to 135 feet south, so this would match that on the west side. The street's 35 feet wide, which basically allows for 3 lanes without parking. And with the new configuration where we set up the 0 offset left turn lanes, there's now an 11-foot north through right lane and a 10-foot northbound left turn lane. And then there, on the opposite end, there's also a left turn only lane, and then there's a 14-foot southbound through lane. So I can show you that quick. Oh, it lets me get rid of this here. So basically, it's this area right here from the corner down to right about here. So it just had matched the other side here. So really, all that we're losing is you can't really park here right now anyway, and it goes down to right about here. So it's basically only a couple parking spots, and then there's unrestricted parking to get further down. So basically the sign on the east east side of the street's right here, and it would just match that on the west side of the street.
Comment, any questions, staff?
I'd say move it. Second.
Again, opportunity for questions or discussion. Call the roll.
Haas,
Aye.
Berman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Szynski,
Aye.
Schwanschneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Agenda item number 2, a request to prohibit westbound to southbound left turns at Merritt Avenue and Main Street. Current condition, left turns are allowed. Approach the podium. Again, state name and address for the record.
My name is Mary Schultz. I live at 507 Jackson Street. I go through this intersection sometimes as many as 4 to 6 times a day. My mother lives on the other side, so anyway, I have good reasons to do that, and frequently wait at least through one light cycle, sometimes two, depending on if a train has come through. So I would like to encourage you to reinstate that no left turn. I'm sure it had been that way for quite a long time. And on the recommendation of the businesses, which I do respect their opinion about wanting traffic to go past, however, all the businesses on Main Street have space behind for parking and access to their business places, as well as left turns behind those stores, either on, is that Division? Yep, on Division or Mount Vernon, you can turn. So there are other opportunities for the left turn as opposed to blocking that intersection, which is, on that angle. I just feel that it's a real kind of inconvenience when you have to wait too long. So I've spoken to a number of people, particularly people who go to the library and the YMCA, who are in agreement that they're frustrated. So that's my encouragement. I think the last time this was discussed, you were at 4 and 5 when you took it to the council. So I know that, there's plenty of space for discussion, and I'm hoping that you'll reconsider and feel that that's an appropriate move. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this item, I decided to bring it back. Left turns were prohibited there, like she said, for a long, long time. The restriction was moved in 2012 in January, and that was passed by the council in February. And at that time, it showed that the left turn prohibition was found wasn't necessary and it wasn't always obeyed. We discussed this again when I first started in May of 14. We decided then it was too soon to bring it back. At that time, 21% of the traffic was turning left, and we didn't observe many cycle failures when we did a traffic camera analysis, but it was observed when a train went through it. It did back up the intersection. But this last year, that corner, and I do go to the downtown Y quite frequently as well, and it has been getting busier with the opening of the Skis Meat Market and some other businesses in that area. So when we were doing the construction on Mount Vernon, which is still ongoing, we put a temporary no left turn sign up there. I didn't get any complaints about that, but I did get a few calls requesting that the restriction be reinstated. So I know that the city manager's got at least one call, and I've got a couple that ask, if that was going to be permanent. And then I've got a couple calls from people that were frustrated in the morning on their way to work when it was backed up there. So I think there that it does make sense to have that prohibited left turn, because if one of those cars in front of you is going to turn left, you're going to be waiting for a while if you don't make it through that light. We've also in the past looked at possibly adjusting traffic signals on Main, but those are all coordinated. So if we do something to this signal, it's going to screw up the rest of Main Street as far as the coordination goes. I've also got a request, somebody had requested making that a left turn only, but because the street on the other side isn't wide enough, we can't do that. It's not wide enough to accommodate it. So I think that probably reinstating that no left turn makes the most sense.
Discussion?
I think the last time somebody brought up about making eastbound church and then having the westbound traffic having a delayed signal to get, some of that eastbound traffic out of the way? Did you look at that at all again, or?
We have considered that, but again, if we do that, we're gonna have to take time from somewhere. So what it's gonna mean is that the Main Street, the signal coordination on Main Street isn't gonna work like it does now. Because right now, the signals are on Main are coordinated so that, when you're going down there, you don't hit green, red, green, red. So if we did that, we'd have to add time there, and we'd have to take it from Main Street. So I talked about pretty extensively with my traffic signal supervisor about that, and he said it can be done, but it would screw up the Main Street corridor.
Was any thought given to restricting no left turn at certain times?
Yes, I have thought about that as well, and that's not a bad idea, but I've observed it at 1 o'clock, I've observed it in the morning and in the afternoon. So I did have that was one of my initial thoughts too, is maybe we restrict it during the morning and afternoon rush hours,
Correct.
but then I've seen it happen at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, you aren't going to cover everything, but
Right.
cover a lot of the frustrations with limited time frame for the no left turn or restricting it.
So that's something that could be.
What was it presented for in the first place, way back? What established the no left turn in the first place there?
Originally, from what I understand, was basically the issue we're discussing is because when vehicles wanted to turn left, they were backing up.
Well, let's not minimize, there's a sight distance problem there, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
That's
narrow
geometry,
intersection
yeah.
all the way around, and it isn't a straight
No.
intersection, it's on an angle, so
Yep.
that sight vision is an issue. I think, I like your suggestion. My only thought on that would be, would we be confusing our citizens, and would they be paying, it
Well-
would be small print, would they even see it and read it? I like the left turn, I was in favor of it, I supported it, but now that Skis is there, the bike shop's there, that fitness place is above there, the apartments are being used, it probably makes sense to go back to no left turn. I think it was that way for probably a good 10, 12 years already, before we switched it, but, and to the citizens' comments, Ms. Schultz, she's correct, all the businesses have back street parking, so if they're turning left to park on Main Street, they have an option to go straight and park in one of the back parking lots, so,
I think that's favor number one, too, for most people.
yeah, and so, I don't like to make changes 2 years out, but I think in this case, it probably warrants it, so I'll support the recommendation.
Yeah, this is basically what we're talking about. I mean, this building here, that's kind of like Mr. Becker was talking, that's where we get the sight distance issues, so. Yeah, we're going to turn left there, it is a kind of a goofy angle with buildings up against all the corners. So I guess my thought is we should go back to restricting it, and I did consider that as well, restricting the hours, but the only thing, I've seen it in the middle of the day, and then the other, like Mr. Herman said, I don't know if that's too confusing for people either. I mean, if you know.
Well, and it becomes an enforcement issue, too, and I think it'd be
Well-
better to that than most people, Steve.
Yeah.
Find that everywhere.
It's 3 after. Oh, well, okay. I mean,
My concern on this is just the ping pong effects here. We keep, it's no parking, or no turning, then there's turning, now it's not.
Yeah.
I know, I've been at the intersection where the temporary no left turn sign is there, but people still turn left anyway.
Yep.
So, I mean, you gotta, to open it up after, a couple of years of it being, to close it after being open up for 2 years now, it just doesn't, I don't think it makes sense at this time because of your time and of how often it has happened. It seems to be citizens are getting confused. Okay, now but why is this turned off again? So I'm not supportive of it at this time.
Well, I think you're going to find violators no matter what you're talking about. And yes, it's a quick return to the no left turn. It's something you just eventually get used to. I mean,
to start
'cause no
somewhere.
matter where you have rules, there's going to be violators. And you try to curb it as much as you can.
Yeah,
I think you're going to say something.
I've looked at it in the, to see if there's anything maybe we can do to update the signage, so we were looking into that a little bit too, to see if there's anything that might be a little more prevalent. I'm sure when it was removed, it made sense for, I don't know if it wasn't as busy then or what exactly, I wasn't here at that time, but from people I've talked to, they thought maybe it shouldn't have been removed, it should have stayed, I don't know, but that's where we're at today, and I think it has gotten a little bit busier. So I do agree, though, if we do put it back in, we should probably leave it there unless something changes. Yeah.
Well, just like you do on other new signage, you put a red flag with it or two, and you can use that for a while to kind of try to get attention. That could be added to the top of the sign.
Else?
Do we have any traffic counts at that intersection at all, roughly? I mean, do we know how many cars a day are going through that intersection?
Yeah, I do. I don't have it with me right now, but I do.
Because I think it is a major thoroughfare, you got the library, you got the Y. I think maybe even some of the county human service people, because they have their building right down in that area, go through that intersection, so it's a busy intersection, so, like everybody, I think everybody that's gone through the intersection has got caught one time or another waiting for somebody to turn left because there's so much traffic on Church coming to the intersection, so.
Yeah, and our assistant library director is one of the people that requested we put that back in. So she said she hears about it.
Does the Green Arrow help at all at Church for going?
Going north?
From east to north, yeah.
Yeah, that works well in the other direction, but because we have a left turn lane there, we can't do that on the east side because the road's not wide enough.
Right.
And like we said, the buildings are so close to the corner, you couldn't even widen it.
Else? Call the roll.
Haas,
Aye.
Berman,
Aye.
Ross,
Nope.
Szynski, Schwanschneider,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
carried 5-1.
Number 3, a request to prohibit parking on Knapp Street west side from 4th Ave to 28 feet south of 4th Ave. Current condition, no restriction.
This is a request from a citizen that lives on 4th, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like he was able to make it today. But it's in relation to a Stadium Bar, which is in this, right on the corner there, of 4th and Knapp. So, there's a stop sign right here. And so when you're heading east on 4th, there's a sight distance issue when you have vehicles parked right in front of the bar here. It's hard to see the traffic coming, I guess it would be north. So all he was asking is if we could restrict parking just in front of the bar here so that you get a clearer line of sight for this traffic coming north. Which to me makes sense. I mean, there's the only parking restrictions in this area. There's a parking restriction over across the street on the west side on the corner, and then there's a parking restriction on the opposite corner here. Talking to the police department, they thought that there was a restriction here in the past. I haven't found that in the ordinances anywhere that I researched. However, it did look like in some old photos that this might have been painted yellow. So my thought is that you're not supposed to park 15 feet from an intersection, so my thought is maybe at one point they had painted this yellow, and then when the road got reconstructed, maybe it just never got painted again. That's the only thing I could think of. But I think restricting the parking here just so that we can have the vision makes sense. There seems to be enough parking in this area that there's pretty few restrictions, and they also have parking down on 4th Street this way.
We did notify the owner of the Stadium Bar and
Yes.
didn't hear from them at all, correct?
Yep, we did. I haven't heard anything.
Because I know that always seems to happen. We do something like this, and then all of a sudden,
The next week, it-
next week, oh my God, my parking's taken away, what did you do? And so, if he's been noted and he hasn't contacted us in any capacity, I guess then, it's a tight corner, it's another one just like the downtown area, you got a building right on top of the intersection, it's tough to see.
Street jogs.
Yeah, a little bit, yep.
Yeah, I drive on that street daily on Knapp, and the street's always parked up with tavern customers, so it's hard, slows traffic down a lot. And I can see the people having site restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, it is a busy place in the middle of the day. I know that they get some of the shift workers and stuff in there, which is great for them. I mean, we're only requesting 28 feet, so we're really only talking about theoretically one, maybe two spots at the most. I did the 28 feet because that matches the restriction on the other side.
You can't park across from a T intersection out here, can you? Or,
Are you talking about right?
well, either one of these, there's kind of like a T. Because the street jogs, so you got a T on the side on Knapp and then on the other.
You mean,
Yeah, like
right in here?
I always said you couldn't park by a T intersection, I'm not sure what the, yeah, like here or here, Not sure what the,
I don't think there's any restriction on it.
No.
I know I mean, it probably is not the best place to park, but I don't think there's anything saying you can't park there. The only restrictions I saw in that area are like at the opposite corner there, so,
no, there's some restrictions because some of the driveways are closer together, so I see a lot of it's painted yellow.
yeah,
on
there's
the,
a restriction here.
This side of Knapp.
And then there's also a restriction here because of the driveways are so close together. So there's no parking between those two driveways. And then at this corner here, there's no parking right behind where that boat is. And that was, again, a site distance issue because of that building.
Well, it's a tight street. Both car lanes are parked on each side, so I think
Right.
by leaving that, it kind of gives a little bit of breathing room if cars are coming that way, so I'd be in favor of it.
I experienced that this morning, just going out to EAA at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
There was 3 cars right in front of the stadium bar and 2 across the way, and it got a little tight.
Right, yeah, it does. So then if a
So if
car's
it was
wanting
just-
to make a turn and he doesn't see an oncoming car.
Oh, yeah.
He swings out to get around that
You hate-
car close, he could run into a car. so.
I hate to take it away from right in front of the business, but with it just on the east side of the street, it's not a big deal then.
All right.
is there time and opportunity to put some yellow paint down there? Just as.
Yes, yeah, we could do that yet this year.
Certainly couldn't hurt.
Yeah, we're pretty much done with what we needed to do for street painting.
Well, again, just a thought.
Yeah, we had weather cooperated this year, so they got done in pretty timely fashion.
Anyone else?
Move it.
Call the roll?
Haas,
Aye.
Berman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Zinsky, Von Schneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Agenda item number 4, a request to change the lane configuration for eastbound Congress Ave traffic at High Avenue from a right turn only lane to a shared right-through lane. Current condition, right turn only.
We can take a look at this. This has come up every few years, I would say. First time since I've been here we've looked at it. But you almost have to look at this whole corridor. So you have the Arboretum Congress here, then you have High Avenue, and then you have Algoma over here. So in my opinion, you almost have to look at the whole corridor. The Congress, or the Arboretum crossing here, the Summit Arboretum crossing, that has come up with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee most recently. A few years ago, we did put the flashing pedestrian crossing flashers in there. They're still having issues with cars not obeying them. So the next level is they have dedicated some budgetary dollars out of the bike and pedestrian, out of their capital fund to put the rectangular rapid flashing beacons here. So these would be the LED, they're gonna have the LED, we're gonna have the LED overhead signs and then they're called RRFBs for short, similar to what we put at 9th in Minnesota and South Park in Delaware last year. So I think that should help make it more prominent at that crossing. And I'm anxious to see how that will work because that's one of the complaints there. In relation to the high intersection, right now we have the right turn only here. And the request was to possibly make that a through or right instead of a right turn only. So this has been looked at before in the past, and my understanding is that that was tried at one time. Again, I don't know how long ago that was, but I understand that it was tried before. And the issue that it created is down here when you get to Algoma, the majority of traffic is turning left from Congress onto Algoma, and that's a left turn only lane down here. So if you did change that to a through or right, those vehicles, the majority of them would have to get over into this left-hand lane before they get to Algoma. And I guess last time it was tried, that was the major issue. They were having issues with cars switching lanes. Whereas now with the right turn only, because of the right turn only, here, traffic is getting over into the correct lane if they're going to be turning left onto Algoma further down the street. So that's kind of the issue we have there, is the need for the vehicles to switch back and forth in the lanes.
And it just kind of follows the discussion of Murdoch. A lot of people are going up Elmwood to cut over to Murdoch, and so you're getting more traffic in the right lane wanting to go straight past the museum because they're cutting through to get on Elmwood, or now with New York closed, go down Bent or in that, or Nevada. And so I think that's part of the problem, but a lot of people go straight in that lane anyways. I mean, I see probably a couple cars a day if I'm in that area going straight. They just don't pay attention. They don't realize they can't do both, even though it's marked with an arrow on the pavement.
Well, this being a board member request, what was the main reasoning?
me.
For the, okay, what was the
And
main reasoning?
As we just listened to you, Jim, about the people going straight and the people not having to move over, this basket weaving is the same thing whether you're down on High or whether you're east up on Algoma. You plan ahead. But you got a lot of people that are new every year for the college and all the pain participation. You do have to learn how to plan ahead a little bit. We've all experienced being cut off or having to make room for somebody that's decide, oh, I'm in the wrong lane, I gotta be in the left lane, I can't go straight ahead at High Street. And then you get down there, so you just plan ahead so that you're in the left lane, left turn lane only when you're there. So the same case scenario applies to both.
But I think the problem you run into is people trying to turn left on Arboretum, too, because they get hung up behind them. So, and again, I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm suggesting is, I think if we're going to do something with the intersection at High, we have to do something with the intersection at Algoma. I mean, in a perfect world, I think we open it up to right and straight in that
Right lane
That right
before
lane.
you approach High.
and we make the Algoma intersection a left turn only in the furthest left lane, and a straight and a left in the right lane.
Yeah, that's the issue we had with this the last time that the board looked at it, is we've actually, that's a truck route, it's a major truck turning movement from High onto North Algoma. And the issue that we have is we have this traffic signal, which is, I'm going to make sure I'm in the right spot. But there's a traffic signal here on this island. And the issue is that there's not enough room here for two vehicles to turn left at the same time. Because if a truck's turning left, we put a truck turning template onto this, and we had our engineering department look at it. And I talked with Mr. Godey about this as well, who's our interim director of public works, and we looked at this, and there's not, even right now, a truck turning left from this lane where this van is, needs to use part of the right lane. So right now, if two cars were if a truck was turning left from this inside lane, it needs to use part of the outermost lane on Algoma. So if you envision this, where this was white car, if that's a truck turning left, it actually needs to use some of both lanes to make that turning movement. So that's why we couldn't make this right lane a left turn as well, because that's going to create an issue whenever there's a truck turning left here.
Well, I may be putting the cart before the horse, but is there any capital improvement projects for that intersection in the next few years?
Unfortunately, there's
Okay.
not.
I mean, obviously, there's solutions that could be had, but
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah, we had
expensive.
intensive discussions about, 2 years ago? I don't know if you were on, about, they came in with overlays and said that, we wouldn't be able to make that, and since that's a major truck route, that was.
Right, but my thought was, I mean, if we can remove that island, take that signal down and put it overhead, it potentially solves that problem. I don't know without looking at the geometry.
That's part of it, that we'd have to take that signal out. And then the other thing is, I know that what had been suggested from the notes I looked at in the past is there's bump out parking here
Oh,
for the
that's true,
van.
yep.
But that was put in, I guess, during some capital reconstruction project. So I think you'd have to take that, you'd have to do something with that signal there and
Overhead.
possibly take out a little bit here.
Yeah, that's
I don't
what,
see
that's
that
what
on
the
the
consensus was, that,
Well, and
that would be the
makes
major
perfect
part, so.
sense now.
Now, how much truck traffic, semi, are making left turns there?
I can get you the data. I don't have it with me currently, but
Well, with
that
all-
is a pretty heavy truck.
Yeah, with all due respect, one is more than enough.
Right, well, and it is the route when the bridge is closed.
Oh, yeah, right.
So in the
I
winter,
was
41
curious.
bridges closed, and you got all the traffic coming down that intersection. But, I think, and I know it's 3 intersections, we're kind of dealing with one issue, but realistically, it's still that issue of cars turning left on Arboretum that causes most of the problems. Because then that backs the traffic up on the bridge, it backs it up, especially if the bridge has been open. And then there's, depending on time of day, you got all that traffic going westbound, and that car wanting to turn can't get through, even when the lights change, because that right turn after stop, which is really a right turn, no stop for most people, you got all that traffic coming around that corner. And then the person has no time to make that turn. And then people get in the right lane to go around that turn car, and they just go straight. They don't get back in that other lane, because that's usually backed up too.
Yeah, I know.
It only
that-
clears out when the arrow is on for the designated left turn. That's the only time it clears out.
Right.
But at the same time, and Gary could probably talk about it more than I do, because I wasn't on when it was brought up the last time, but, you tried that right turn, and I imagine it backed up traffic just as bad, because now one car waits at the light to go straight, everybody else could be going and turning and turning and turning, keeping traffic flowing on Oshkosh Avenue, and now they gotta wait for the light to transition.
And I know last time we looked at Summit, it happens, but it didn't happen real frequently. But yeah, that does happen, especially when the bridge comes down.
Well, yeah, but you're gonna have congestion, you have that at every place around the bridge.
Right.
It's a temporary problem when the bridge goes up. And people in town here are very patient with the bridge raising. They're used to it, they grew
They're
up
used to it,
with
not to be patient.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're going to have congestion for a little while after it comes back down and traffic gets moving again.
Yeah, for the Arboretum, I've thought about this too. Right now, you can make a right turn from Algoma onto Congress here from the right lane. I actually thought about that a little bit, and I talked to the state a little bit about it. One of my ideas was, well, to create gaps in traffic, you could prohibit right turn on red here from Algoma onto Congress, but the issue that created is when we did the analysis, it created about a 30-second delay for vehicles that are turning there, and it did back up Algoma quite a bit. And then the other issue I saw with that is, from an enforcement standpoint, most places in the country you can turn right on red. So if you said you can't turn right on red from this lane, that we might have an enforcement issue there as well. So that's another idea I've tossed around, but that's not a perfect solution either.
Isn't there no turn on red at a church on the main?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a few of them around.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I mean, you got them all,
Yeah.
around, yeah. So they're around.
But I guess that's one consideration. I was a little more concerned with, though, this adding that much of a delay with that volume of traffic and backing up on Algoma.
And the accidents seem to be going down, so it's working. I mean, it isn't like people are frustrated and they zip out to the right and run into somebody.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's the other thing I noted, that, the last few years, the accident trend has been going down. I don't know if that's because people are more used to it, or I haven't really pinpointed why that is, but the accident trend is good with the current configuration.
Well, let me throw in something else, and we're thinking on this intersection. We're talking about closing Murdoch, or Elmwood off at Murdoch.
It's been discussed.
Eliminate the shortcutters.
Yeah, we've discussed that. Our police and fire chief are against it for emergency access. So I guess for that reason, I wouldn't be supportive of that.
Okay, well, I'll throw this idea out as to both lanes on Congress making a left turn in front of the pane, and having Congress alongside the pane only one way eastbound, westbound. So you don't have to have a straight ahead and a left turn. You got both of them are left turn there.
But that doesn't address his issue of turning radius for trucks.
yeah.
Well, the whole thing is, other places, there's a lot of places where you gotta kind of take turns and allow,
Asking for trouble, though.
and
You base-
we got that
basically you-
problem on Irving, and that's the worst case scenario there is in town.
Basically, you'd have to, even if you did that, you still can only get one truck turning left there. What it would be, it'd be one lane. You'd almost have to restrict. Well, no, you'd have to go from the two lanes from Congress on to Algoma, probably.
That's two lanes.
Right, you have the one now going straight and the one going left. You'd eliminate the straight, and then you'd only allow left there, but it'd be one lane going left. Because you can't, like I just
Not
explained,
wide enough.
Two lanes wide there.
it's not wide enough for two vehicles to turn left. That's the problem.
Smart cars, absolutely, but a 48-foot trailer in almost anything else is a problem.
It's like the roundabouts, they have to
Right.
take kind of the middle of the roundabout to go around them. I saw one today,
Maybe.
You could make that big monument area into one super large traffic circle.
If the paint agree to sell it, good luck with that.
They own that, it's not a city property?
Yeah, I don't think this is the last time this is gonna come up, but I guess for now, I'm in favor of leaving it like it is. And if we come up with any good ideas, I'm happy to research them.
Certainly continue to brainstorm,
Yeah,
but
Try to eliminate the basket weaving, but
Yeah.
lane changes can get hairy.
And again, state statute says you can't do them with 100 feet of an intersection, but again, does that mean much? No.
No.
That certainly is a problem, but I don't know that there's a solution readily at hand to deal with it at this point. We did get a move in a second, I believe, or did we not?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
Anyone else? Call the roll.
Haas,
So the recommendation is to deny.
Yes, it's to leave it as is, which would be to deny the,
Status quo is a no.
No.
Herman,
No.
Ross,
No.
Szynski,
No.
Von Schneider,
Yes.
Becker,
No.
Ross. 1.
Which brings us to staff statement, specifically one-way streets.
yeah, this is another controversial topic, but not looking for any actions on it. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and the mayor wanted me just to make you aware of it, that somebody had approached him on the subject again. And looking through my history, it's not the first or the last time this has been brought up. But he just wanted me to make you aware that somebody had inquired about it again. They were specifically inquiring about the possibility of CP and Wagoo and Otter being converted to two-way streets. Like I said, this has come up over the years. Looks like it comes up about every 6 to 8 years. Chris Strong, my predecessor, did an extensive presentation on it in 2008. Historically, changing the one-ways to two-ways has been rejected by the council, and it was primarily based on citizen concerns of losing on-street parking. And that happened most recently in 2003, where the Traffic Review Board had made some recommendations, and it was defeated at council due to the backlash with parking. So we talked about this some internally, and departmentally, we agreed that they're functioning well, and there are not currently any significant safety concerns. And statistically, one-way streets are actually safer due to the reduced number of conflict points. The traffic seems to be moving, motorists seem to be familiar with it. CP seems to work well with events. It actually helps move some traffic through there. And if we were to consider a change there, it would be very costly for the signs and traffic signals. I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it, but that is a consideration. But the main reason that I don't think that's a good idea is the reconstruction of Main Street was done in concert with one-way streets. So it seems like maybe we missed that opportunity if that was going to be considered. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
The gentleman that contacted the mayor also contacted me, and we had a lengthy discussion about it. And I concur with Mr. Collins. It's working fine, and the concern of the businesses that are on the side streets is that loss of parking. We would have to make parking adjustments. Just on a side note, you don't think that parking study or even the long-term plans are going to look at street reconfigurations, are they?
The parking study is not. However, I can't say that the downtown park, there's two studies going on, for those that aren't familiar. There's a downtown parking study, which is currently ongoing. There's parking consultants looking at our downtown parking capacity to see if we have adequate capacity, and also helping us with strategize about how to finance our parking utility. So there's that study that's going on currently that should be wrapping up by the end of the year. I believe the consultants are in town actually this week again. And then there's also a downtown business strategy study going on, or downtown, I guess, comprehensive plan study going on that is looking at a broader scoped area that goes down to Oregon Street a little bit, but just looking at our downtown district and making recommendations there in general with development. So there are two different studies. The parking is not going to be considering the one-way streets, but I can't say that the downtown plan wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
And it doesn't affect, this won't really affect traffic in the downtown area, but there's also going to be a recommendation to make a neoclassical zone of several buildings down in that area, which incorporates the library, the old post office, the Washington building, the Getman building, and I think the Masonic Temple, are going to be in what's called a neoclassical zone. So if that's going to bring more people to that area to look at these buildings somewhere down the line, I don't know. But to Mr. Collins' comment that the downtown plan that was developed like 20 years ago is completed as is. So now this one, as he said, is focusing on the downtown area, but broadening the downtown area to what we want that whole corridor from basically the railroad tracks to Irving to Jackson to 9th Street and bring it back around is kind of the area. It's being spotted. We're in fact tonight at the council meeting, we're approving a grant to help fund that. The Oshkosh Area Community Foundation is part of that. The bid is part of that, and then one of our tax increment financing districts are funding it. So it's what do we want that area to look like in the next 10 to 20 years, past where it's been. So with that, I have to leave at another workshop downstairs. Excuse me.
Anyone else on one-way streets?
I think that area works really good. I used to live in that neighborhood, and for a while they tried to put in a one-way system on Bowen and Mill just for those few blocks, and that didn't work and got changed back. But the Wagoo, CP, and Otter works really good.
I mean, once in a while, you'll get someone, and I've seen it fairly regularly, going the wrong way. And again, that's my only concern. I always say to people, it's lucky the firehouse is right there, because inevitably there will be a problem. Just rule of probability. But, and I think that's easily solved, which is my roundabout way, no pun intended, of coming to a question, which is there a better opportunity, particularly during Waterfest season, Mr. Collins, to do some signage? Because most of the problems I see are coming out of Waterfest activities. People will go left or westbound on CP coming out of a city parking lot. And I know there's one-way signs there, but typically by the time Waterfest ends, it's dark. So, again,
Sure, definitely, we can look at that.
it's,
I'll talk to Sergeant Harris and see what he thinks.
I mean, arguably it becomes an enforcement issue, but I mean, a well-placed barricade, potentially, you obviously can't put one in the street because you'll impede traffic flow, but, to strongly discourage a left-hand turn coming out of the Leach parking lots. Something, but
Maybe an officer can actually be out right after Waterfest.
or any Leach activity
Yeah, right.
ultimately.
Yeah, I know they have CSOs out there, but they're more for the pedestrians
Yeah.
than traffic, but, yeah, definitely, I'll talk to Sergeant Harris, who's in charge of special events, and see what he thinks.
Anyone else on one-way streets, anyway? All right. So, recruitment of new board members, or board members, I should say.
This was something that the city manager and mayor asked us to put on every board agenda for this month. The city's looking to do some public service announcements to help in the recruitments of board members. So they're looking to do a video, basically, I think. So if anyone's interested, let Marlene or I know, and we can get you in touch with the community media and see what they can do.
So this is citywide, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they're looking to help with recruitments for members for boards and commissions. We're pretty fortunate that we have a full board, and but there's some that are still looking for members.
Spread the word. Agenda items for the next meeting. One? I have one. It's a topic that's come up on a couple of prior occasions. Signage in Menominee Park. Actually had a couple people, now that summer's not quite drawing to a close, inquire about the necessity of signage in Menominee Park. Now that pedestrians, at least for, lion's share, are going to be diminishing once the snow flies. I guess I'm just looking to see what past practice has been on that front. Again,
What type of signage?
well, right now, there's stop signs in front of the zoo, as an example. I believe there's yield signs as you wrap back around near the lake, behind the beach house. And
I think
whatnot.
there's actually stop signs, aren't they?
The ones in front of the zoo, I believe, are stops.
Yeah.
Be
Are you
honest
talking
with
about the pedestrian crossing sign? Yeah.
Yeah. So my question ultimately was, or is it been past practice to pull those back once the snow flies? Again, I don't make a point to go into the park in the wintertime.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Those are generally handled by the Parks Department, so I could find out though.
Well, and again, it becomes potentially a little bit cross-jurisdictional because it's actually a named street back there, if I'm not mistaken. So PD has jurisdiction, so it kind of falls
Sure.
two different. But again, I've had a few people, comment to me that, I'm sitting there at a stop sign and there's no one in sight for, a quarter mile in the middle of February. Why am I stopping here? Kind of a thing. So, again, just a topic to give some thought to.
Okay.
Certainly, it's going to cut down on sign wear and tear too, potentially. I mean, if they're not exposed.
Yeah, I'll look into it and see what they've done in the past.
And then another item, again, actually ironically the same citizen, brought to my attention that, and I don't know if we've ever had it on our agendas, but a specific agenda item for citizen comment, as opposed to comment on agenda items, just to allow for broader comment on non-agenda items.
Okay.
I guess I would open that up to, possible consideration from the other board members, if that's something they would prefer, like to see, because I think it gives us then better opportunity to hear from the public, as opposed to just on the 3 or 4 or 5 agenda items we have on the agenda for that meeting, as opposed to something bigger and broader.
I guess that comes down to a matter, is it going to be a forum to express a concern, or do they want an answer to a question that maybe not be equipped at the time to
Well,
resolve?
but the answer to that question then is exactly what you just said. We're not equipped to
Right.
answer that question at
So-
this time.
Right.
I think if it's properly, again, no pun intended, policed, it serves a purpose. And I certainly don't want to be caught in a position, Gary, of not having an answer to a question, but I
Right.
don't think there's any shame in saying, we'll have to get back to you with an answer.
If anybody has an issue, they can bring it to you, and you bring it forward anyway, don't they? Or-
Yeah, it's generally, but,
But then we don't get to hear it.
yeah.
I mean, other than through Mr. Collins, which, again, no offense, but sometimes it's better straight from the horse's mouth, too. Because then you have the option to ask questions. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jim.
Oh, no, it's fine. I mean, it's, some boards have it, some don't. Like, I know our Transit Advisory Board, we have a period for citizen comments at the beginning of the meeting. It's basically the same thing, like, we could do that if you want to. It's similar to what they do at the council meeting. We would set parameters around it, no more than a few minutes, and has to be something that's not on the agenda. We'd basically set it up similar to, like, the other boards in the council meeting, and then it would be a limited time period to say, it's maximum 10, 15 minutes, whatever that would be. I'd make it consistent with what the other boards do. I don't have any
I
objection
certainly
to it.
wouldn't suggest we'd give 10 to 15 minutes to a person.
No, I mean
In totality,
total.
yeah.
So it'd be, you get 3 to 4 minutes to speak your issue, a maximum of whatever, I'll look to see what it is, but it's 10, 15 minutes total.
That's probably a good idea.
Okay. If you guys want, what I'll do then is I can make a recommendation, and then you guys can vote on it at the next meeting.
Sounds fair. Anyone else?
The only other thing I want to bring to your attention, it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting, is another request for bike lanes. But this one won't be as controversial as ones in the past have been, because the street's wide enough to allow parking in bike lanes. But in conjunction with that, I just want to make you aware the Bike and Pedestrian Committee has been working on their priorities from the Bike and Pedestrian Plan, which was passed in 2011. And you may have noticed the bicycle markings on Knapp, Fifth, and Osborne. And just for any citizens that are watching, or I know I've got a couple calls, and we're trying to get the word out with what those mean. We've put them in a city newsletter, and we're thinking about maybe the planning department's technically the staff liaison for the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, but possibly doing a public service announcement with what those mean. What those are they're called Sharrow markings. So what it means is that bikes and vehicles may be sharing the road where those symbols are. So when they put that plan together, there were 3 recommendations. There's bike paths, and then there's bike lanes. I guess this goes in a hierarchy from bike paths to bike lanes. The next step down would be sharrows, where you sign it as a bike route and bikes and vehicles may share the road. and then the step down from there would just be signage, and then nothing's. So that's what those markings are. There'll probably be more of those in the future on, they're generally, what they recommended are using those on routes where parking was an issue, where we couldn't eliminate parking and they wanted it to be part of the bike plan. So that's what those are. The ones that we did recently connect the bike lanes on Sawyer down east on Fifth, and then they go south on Knapp over to get to Osborne, where there's bike lanes, excuse me, and then connects the bike lanes on Osborne east to South Park. So they were trying to connect Sawyer and Osborne and South Park. So anyway, I just want to make you aware of that. That's what those symbols are. They're just pavement markings that say that bikes may be using the lane of traffic.
Are they going to plan to add any signs at all? Because like on some places, like, where Knapp and Fifth, the bike lane, shifts from one street to the other, just to designate that the route takes a turn there? Or?
Yes, we haven't got all the signages done yet. We've started with the pavement marking, and they're still working on the signage. Some of the signs you'll see are the ones that say bikes may use full lane. It's probably the most common one. But yeah, that's something we need to evaluate, what the proper signage is. It's pretty new to the city, so we're kind of experimenting.
With the bike lanes going around the city, is there going to be at one point an analyzing of the data of how often they're used?
Yes, that's another good question. Our East Central Regional Planning Commission has done some bike counts on Sawyer. They've said they were going to get those to me. They haven't got them to me yet. Granted, they did them when school wasn't in session, but they do have some data. So that's something that we're going to be looking at. We currently in the city don't have the tools to do bike counts other than manually counting them. However, they do have an infrared sensor that East Central uses to count bikes. I'm getting more information on how exactly that works. But yes, that is something that we plan on doing as we put bike lanes into study how they're used.
I always wondered why you picked Knapp when I first saw the signage.
Yeah,
All the years I've traveled, I don't know, I can't recall seeing a bicycle on Knapp Street.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why they necessarily picked that other than,
It's a good
Connects to
connector between
Osborne.
right.
the logical connector between
Yep.
the
Yeah.
other paths.
Goes backwards from Osborne, and you can go, yeah.
Yep, it's a logical, I guess that's what they thought, it's a logical connector, and
Yeah.
now, like you said, are people gonna use it or not? I guess that's the question now. So there's more to come on that topic.
I noticed a lot of the paint seemed to like be coming off right away, especially like on the bicycle figure part,
Yeah, that's, we're still experimenting with that. We painted them to start, and they did wear off pretty fast. The next option is, they have actually, it's pre-marked symbols that it's called thermoplastic, that you have to actually melt onto the road. We're thinking we're going to try those at a couple different locations, see if those hold up better. The concern with those is the plows take them up. So we're going to put some down yet this fall on the next time we do some Sharrows. We actually ordered some of them and see if those last a little bit longer. So there's paint, there's thermoplastic. You can inlay thermoplastic, which is better because then there's not as much chances the plow is taking them up, but we don't have the equipment to groove it like you need to. And then there's epoxy paint. So we don't have the equipment for epoxy either, but that's a consideration. We could contract them out to have them done in epoxy, but that's a cost consideration. So our thought for the time being was the cheapest option is to paint them, which we did, see how they get used, see if we're happy with where they're at, test the thermoplastic, see if that works a little bit better, and then evaluate the cost versus the usage and see what's the best way to go. We've actually talked to the state a little bit about it as well, and there's really no consensus on what the best method is. We have the same issue, although it's a little bit different with the roundabout markings right now. As you can see, some of those are starting to come up, and we're evaluating what the best way is, because now that the state is responsible for the ones right on and off the ramps from the highway, but we're responsible for the frontage roads. So we're actually evaluating now if we're going to paint them, use epoxy, or use thermoplastic.
Anyone else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move it.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.